Hello students, this class we will learn about the dietary assessment or diet surveys for assessing the nutritional status of the population. Earlier we have seen how to assess the nutritional status through anthropometry, that is the measurement of the body, and the clinical assessment where you see the physical signs and symptoms of the nutritional deficiency diseases. So, this dietary assessment is another important method of assessing the nutritional status, and let us see in detail what is dietary assessment or diet surveys. Now, diet is a vital determinant of health and nutritional status of people. Dietary habits of individuals, families, communities, they vary according to the socio-economic factors, religion, customs and traditions. Now, need and importance of dietary assessment. Why do we need dietary assessment? So, dietary intake surveys are important for assessing the nutritional status of the people. Secondly, dietary assessment is needed for elucidating the relationship of nutrient intakes with deficiency as well as degenerative diseases. Understanding of the nutrient gaps or excess of dietaries would help in planning diets to overcome diet related morbidities and thus promote the health of the people. Diet surveys are essential for assessing the food needs of population groups at both national and regional levels. Now, policies on food production, procurement and distribution can be formulated only through the knowledge of food habits of the people. Food consumption data given by regular nutrition monitoring or surveillance system is helpful in tackling food crisis occurring due to crop failure, for example, droughts, floods, war, etc., through timely imports or facilitating movement of food grains within the country. Qualitative information on diet is also needed for fixing minimum wages, organizing rationing and mass community feeding programs. We have different types of diet surveys which include both qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative aspects of food consumption is to get information on the types of foods people eat and the frequency in which they eat the different types of foods, which can be habitual or occasional. Their opinion and attitudes towards food. Then the cultural significance they attach to special foods or drinks, if any. This we can see that in certain festivals people eat specific foods and that becomes a cultural significance, and this is different for different areas. And data on food practices during health and disease and under special physiological conditions like pregnancy, lactation and infancy. And we can also find this that during disease conditions, different people from different areas, they give special foods for the people who suffer from different type of diseases. And even during pregnancy and lactation, they have cultural practices of giving different types of foods to the pregnant and lactating mothers, and the same in case of infants. Now, the quantitative aspects of diet surveys, exact amount of foods consumed in terms of grams or liters can be recorded. The nutrient contents of foods consumed can be estimated, and comparison of nutrient intakes with the RDAs provide a measure of adequacy or inadequacy of food and nutrient consumption. Now, diet survey at individual level, we have different types of diet surveys, which is 24-hour diet recall, then we have a repeated 24-hour recall, then estimated food records, weighed food records, where each and every food that is taken by the individual is weighed and recorded. Then the dietary history it includes the diet that is taken for the past few days or whatever special diets are taken by the individuals. Then food frequency questionnaire, where the food is repeated every time. Then diet survey at household level, it includes food account method, then list recall method, inventory method, and household record method or food weighment method. So, here when it comes to the household survey, they get the food for 1 week or 1 month. There it includes the inventory method or list recall method and so on. Then we can also do telephone survey for household level and family food scale. Then diet survey at national level, which includes food balance sheet and market database, universal product codes and electronic devices. There are new developments in the food consumption measurements. One is telephone administered approach or survey, then photographing the food before eating and leftover food. This is generally done when a specific diet is given to an individual. The people who prescribe the diet, they ask for the photograph of the plate that is filled with whatever food is to be eaten for that particular time, and also the leftover food is to be photographed and sent. Then electronic devices for recording food intakes. Measuring food consumption of individuals, the quantitative daily food consumption methods, for example, recall or records of food intake over 1 day period. So, the individual is asked to recall whatever he has eaten from the time he has got up till the sleeping. Each and every food in approximate quantity is asked and noted. Then it could be extended for longer periods. Then estimates actual recent intake and usual of individuals. If you do this 24-hour recall method for over a period of 3 days or 5 days, you can see what is the pattern of diet that is taken by an individual over a period. Then qualitative nutrient intake data for an individual will be dietary history, food frequency questionnaire, and 24-hour recall method. Let us see in detail how it is done. One is recalling the subject's exact food intake during the previous 24-hour period or the preceding day, because the same day you cannot give for 24 hours. So, generally it is done for the previous day. Then a trained nutritionist interviews subjects, their parents or caretakers. Interviewers records detailed descriptions of all the foods and beverages that are consumed, including the cooking methods and brand names, because they have different types of ingredients when each dish is cooked, and the brand names also, the nutrient contents are quite different. Then vitamin and mineral supplements, if used, also are noted. Then quantities of food consumed are entered on data sheet in the household measures. Food models of various types that can be used as memory aids and also to assist in assessing the portion size. Then the interviewers should be retained if necessary. Now, leading questions or judgmental comments should be avoided. Suppose we say, did you eat that? Didn't you include this? The person will be influenced and say, yes, I have included, which gives a wrong result. So, no leading questions or judgmental comments should be avoided. Then a single 24-hour recall is most appropriate for assessing average intakes of foods and nutrients for a large group, except for persons with poor memories and young children. So, when you want to cover a large group of population, you cannot continue with doing diet survey for 1 week. So, a single 24-hour recall method will be sufficient to cover the large group, and it is not suitable to assess usual food or nutrient intake of individuals unless representative population is selected and survey is done for all the 7 days. Then repeated 24-hour recall. 24-hour recalls can be repeated during different seasons of the year to estimate the average food intake of individuals over a long period of time. That is, the usual food intake can be noted. The number 24-hour recalls required to estimate the usual nutrient intake of individuals depends on the degree of precision needed, the nutrient under study and the population group. If an adequate sampling procedure is designed to take into account the influence of weekends, seasons and holidays on the pattern of food intake, the results can provide an estimate of national food consumption. But generally the 24-hour recall method is avoided during the holidays and festivals, because the regular diet is not taken and something special is included in the diet and it gives a wrong result. Then estimated food records is the third method, where the respondent is asked to record at the time of consumption all foods and beverages and snacks eaten for a specific period of time. So, detailed description of all foods and beverages and their method of preparation and cooking are recorded. Food portion size can be estimated by using standard household measuring cups and spoons or supplemented by measurement with a ruler. For example, if you take meat or cake, it can be used by measuring with a ruler, and if it is for eggs or bread slices, you can count for number of eggs or number of bread slices. Then portion sizes are converted into grams by the investigator to calculate the nutrient intake. Now, the number of days included may be usually 3 days, 5 days or 7 days. Weekend days should be proportionately used for each subject to account potential day of the week affects the food and nutrient intake. Then weighed food records, most precise method available for estimating the usual food and nutrient intakes of the people. Such data is essential for diet counseling and for satisfied and analysis, that is, if you apply the correlation or regression with biological parameters, you get the exact result. All the foods consumed by the subject during a specified time period are weighed and recorded. Details of the method of preparation, description of foods, brand names should also be recorded. Now, respondents may require assistance in recalling the food items. Respondents have to record a description of the amount of food that is eaten outside the home, the number, spacing, selection of days, characterizing usual or actual intakes of individual using the weighment method vary depending upon the nutrient of the concern, study population, objective of the survey. The weekend days should be proportionately included. Then respondents must be motivated and numerates and literate if a dietary method is selected. But there are certain limitations to this method. The respondents may change the usual eating pattern to simplify weighment or to impress the investigator, and burden of food records is higher on the respondents than for 24-hour recall method, because if they are informed that a diet survey is conducted, they may not have their usual dietary pattern, but include more foods in their diet. So, it becomes a burden for the food records on the respondent. Then advantage is precision is greater in the weighed record compared to estimated record method. Then we have another method called dietary history. Attempts to estimate the usual food intakes of individuals over a relatively long period of time, then it is an interview method made up of 3 components and should be carried out by a nutritionist trained in interview techniques. The first component includes 24-hour recall actual intake collections of general information on overall eating pattern of the subject, both at meal times and between meal times. Then description of foods, frequency of consumption and usual portion size in household measures. The second component serves a cross check for information on intake, has a questionnaire, frequency of consumption of specific foods, verifying the first reported food. And the third component consists of a 3-day food record using household measures. Least helpful component, often omitted numerous modifications may exist, like the portion size can be estimated using common utensils or commercial plastic food models, then standard cups and spoons, photographs of real foods. So, time period cover may also vary. Shorter time periods show higher precision and validity. 1 month periods are common, takes into account potential effect of holidays. Now, average daily intake can be calculated as 5 into work day intake plus Saturday plus Sunday divided by 7. Now, food frequency questionnaire. A food frequency questionnaire is designed to obtain qualitative descriptive information about food consumption patterns. Does not provide quantitative data on food or nutrient intakes. A questionnaire has a list of foods and a set of frequency of use response categories. It may be focused questionnaire focusing specific groups of food, particular foods, occasionally consumed foods, festive or seasonal foods to focus on specific nutrient, or it may be extensive to enable estimates of total food intake and hence dietary diversity may be made. The aim to assess frequency with which certain food items or food groups are consumed during specific period of time, example daily or weekly or monthly and yearly. The questionnaire should be simple with a defined food categories. Open-ended questions should be avoided. Data can be obtained by standard interview or self-administered questionnaire, both taking just about 15 to 20 minutes. The respondent cannot concentrate on giving a long answers for lengthy questionnaire. Often used by epidemiologists to study association between dietary habits and disease. There are new development in measuring the food consumptions. One is the telephone administered approach or survey and photographing, as I told you, and electronic devices for recording food intakes. Now, third one is the measuring of individual consumption at national level. The first one is at the individual level, then second one is at the family level and the third one as the national level. The food balance sheet provide data on food which is available for consumption, that is food supply within the country, and food balance sheet provides no information on distribution within the country and consumption by the population. So, food balance sheets provide data on available food which can be compared with the food supply between countries and they monitor trends over time. The FAO publishes food balance sheets of 200 countries annually since 1949. You can see the amount of work that goes into it with between 200 countries to publish data on the food balance sheets. FAO also defines the food balance sheet as a national account of the annual production of food, changes in stock, imports and exports, distribution of food over various uses within the country. Per capita availability is the stocks at the beginning of year plus total food produced plus imports minus the stock at the end of the year plus export and plus seeds plus cattle for poultry feed plus wastage. This is the per capita availability of food per day per gram, and all these put together you divide by the mid-year population into 365 days, and mostly useful for administrators and planners, and this can also help in importing and exporting of various food materials from different countries, because the data of 200 countries is available on food balance sheets, and whatever is excess can be exported and the deficient food can be imported from other countries. And it also helps in taking decisions to avert crisis situations. Then you have market databases. Commercial market database report nationally projected unit and sales of most packaged foods sold in grocery stores. Minor trends in consumer purchases of nutritionally modified foods such as fortified foods or foods low in sodium, cholesterol, all calories can be monitored. Food avoidance behavior can be based on components like preservatives and artificial sweeteners. Universal product codes and electronic scanning devices are helpful for food purchases to be monitored at store checkout counters. They are standard multi-digit numbers with which machine readable code that represent product, size, manufacturer, nature of content used on all canned foods, packaged foods and even fresh food items repacked in the stores. So, the information can be used to monitor food expenditure and purchases at the local, regional and national level. All the packaged foods you can find these multi-digit numbers on which is only machine readable, and individually we cannot decode it. Then selecting an appropriate method for assessing food or nutrient intake. If you want the actual nutrient intake of individuals, you can do the weighed food records, where all the foods that are eaten by the individuals can be weighed and recorded, and in turn they can be converted into the nutrient intake by calculating the nutrient contents. Then duplicate meals collected for chemical analysis. Whatever food is eaten by the individuals, sample of the food is collected, the whole diet is mixed, and then the chemical analysis is done to assess the nutrient content of the diet, which gives more appropriate result of the nutrient intake of an individual. Then average usual nutrient intakes of a group, single 24-hour recall and single weighed or estimated food record can be done. Portion of the population at risk can be identified for whom repeated 24-hour recall can be done to assess the nutrient intake of the individuals, and replicate weighed and estimated one-day food record also can be taken. Then usual nutrient intake of individuals, you have multiple replicates of 24 hours and estimated weighed food records, and estimate the pattern of food use for a record of group or an individual. You can use food frequency questionnaire, ranking in the epidemiological studies, and to see the average use of specified foods for a group, food frequency questionnaire for a group and ranking of epidemiological studies can be done. And you can also do 24-hour or one-day food record when large number of subjects are used. Measuring the consumption at household levels. At household consumption is defined as the total amount of food available for consumption at household generally excluding the food that is eaten away from home unless taken from home. So, food consumption per capita is calculated irrespective of age, sex, structure of the household. Individual food consumption details cannot be provided. It is important to collect the age and sex composition of the household, the physiological state, activity level, number of meals at home and away from home, income and other socio-economic characteristics of the members of the household to enable calculation of food and nutrient intake per capita. So, here the entire food that is taken by the family or the entire amount that is cooked in the family is taken for record, and then depending upon the age, the income and the activity level, the number of meals the individual takes at home or the food that takes away from home and other socio-economic characters, the individual per capita consumption of food and nutrient is calculated. So, this becomes a more accurate method because the wastage also is calculated and removed from the calculation of nutrients of the individuals. Then food account method provides annual mean food consumption and meal patterns of population. It is a daily record prepared by the householders for all the foods entering the household, either purchased or received or as a gift or produced for the use of specific period, usually 7 days. So, quantities of each food item are recorded in the units of weight and household measures. No account is taken for the food that is consumed outside home and food that is discarded as plate waste, spoilage or that is fed to the pets, and 10% wastage factors for all edible portion of the food consumed is applied. That is, if you peel the skin of the vegetable and all such things are deleted from the records. So, that is the 10% wastage is removed. Then relatively inexpensive and burden for food account method is very low in this. Used to collect data from large sample, usually during different months of the year, to see whether there is any seasonal variation in the food intake. Then list recall method. Here a trained interviewer uses the structured questionnaire containing a list of major food items likely to be consumed. Household is asked to recall foods used by the householder on and as purchased basis, their quantity, price or purchase value over a specific period of time. Usually it precedes 1 or 7 days. Frequently, no account is taken for food wasted, spoiled or fed to pets. Quantities may be estimated by weight or household measures or food models, which can be used as memory aids. Now, characteristics of canned or packaged foods should be recorded, and the family composition, number of meals eaten at home and outside, income, etc. also are recorded. So, need to be obtained to calculate per capita nutrient intake. List recall method is currently being used by USDA for their normal food consumption survey. One interview taking 2.5 hours costs lower than the other methods, and the response rate is generally high in this method. Then you have the inventory method. This method aims at recording acquisition and changes in the food inventory of households during the survey period. Usually this is done for 1 week. An inventory is prepared of the weight and types of all food commodities like the ledger stocks, monthly and annual, in the household at the beginning and at the end of the survey period. In addition, the type and weight of food purchased, home produced or gifted or as payment in kind are also recorded daily during the survey period. A wastage factor of 10% of edible portions of all foods is applied to the food items discarded during spoilage, plate waste or to be fed to the pets and can be collected and weighed separately. The wastage weights subtracted from the inventory weight. Finally, the net amount of each commodity used by the household during the survey period can be calculated. The number of persons and the age of persons consuming each meal is recorded daily to calculate the mean food consumption per person. This method has too high a respondent burden because the response rate was adversely affected and the normal food consumption pattern seems to be distorted. Thinking that something they are going to get, they do not usually give the right information to the investigator. Then you have the household food record method or food weighment method. Here the amount of all food consumed at each meal recorded separately either by weight or household measures. The food records filled either by household or the field worker, and it is done for a period of 7 days or 1 week, and detailed description of all the foods, their method of preparation, brand names, etc. are recorded, and sometimes the plate weights from each meal are also recorded and they are collected for the weighment of each food item. Kitchen and plate waste and fed to the pests is not accounted for in this method, but a wastage factor of 10% edible portion of the food consumed is applied, and the food eaten outside or presence of guests at home, sharing of food are also recorded. Consumption units or man values are used to calculate the nutrients from the collected data. Weighed food record method is the most accurate of the household methods. It produces better estimate of the adequacy of household intake, particularly for the families. Then nevertheless, it has high respondent burden. It is expensive due to frequent visits of the surveyors, and non-response rate also might be very high because people would not like to show the amount of food they cook, so that they have the feeling that somebody may have a bad eye on the food. Then PAO recommended this method for use in rural areas in less developed countries. Then the next method is the telephone survey, where the telephone survey may be frequently because they cost on an average 40 to 50% of personal interviews. So, the individual does not have to go to the individual houses and collect the data. The telephone surveys are useful to collect consumer information on the purchase and use of certain products. Example, protein supplements, and this cannot be used for the as a diet survey to know the individual consumption of all the nutrients. It can be used for a particular product and the usage of product and the purchase of the number of people purchasing the product and etc. The US FDA has been using telephone surveys. It can be interviewed online with a computer, eliminating manual recording on a paper, and the response rate is very high, almost 85 to 90%, required few days or few weeks to complete the entire survey. Then we have the family food scale. Here the family food scale is constructed for information on the frequency with which a range of food groups are eaten. It is cumulative in the sense that a diet which includes food items within a given scale, step position will also be included the items of all the preceding steps. It is possible from this predict of food items consumed and to specify the dietary complexity and diversity. So, here we collect the information for the starchy foods, fats and oils, spices and condiments, fruit and fruit juices, milk of all types, no dairy beverages, fish, fresh and desired. So, there are certain limitations for this method of diet survey, where you have to have a trained personnel for conducting the diet survey, and the sincerity of the interviewer also is very important, and the respondents exact response to the real question is very important, and the critical evaluation of the diet of an individual and how to get the correct information from the individual is also very important. Now, family food scale is used in a single scale step indicates both which food and how many food groups are consumed, and highly trained interviewers are not required for this group, and it can be used for individual as well as households. This scale can be used to examine relation between complexity of the diet and prevalence of malnutrition of a particular age group. Overall food intake quality can be predicted. So, this is how the diet survey can be conducted in different ways, and you get a very good idea of what are the foods that are taken and why the nutrient deficiency is occurring because of lack of the consumption of various foods, and why the excess of nutrients are intake and how this can be controlled. And diet counseling becomes a very important thing after conducting a diet survey, and the prescribed diet can include all the deficient nutrients and excess nutrients, and a balanced diet can be achieved because of the diet survey. Thank you.